y'all, my name is Nikita, aka Kit the Vampire King, and today I'll be working on a speed paint. This video is a bit different from my usual speed paints because it only shows the first half of my process, which is creating a type of collage called photobashing. Most of the video is sped up to about 4 times the speed I was actually working at, as I spent almost 2 hours on this step alone. I will be making a second video next week that includes the sketch and illustration. That video will also go a little bit more in depth into the folklore of who I'm drawing. I couldn't quite figure out exactly what I wanted to draw, but I knew that I was feeling called to draw a mermaid. I've always felt really connected to water, and now that it's getting warmer outside, I've been feeling the call to water more and more. So I think that's where this idea came from. As far as mythology goes, I've never really looked too deeply into mermaids specifically, so I found it really difficult to find one to draw. But lately I've been doing a lot of research on building a deeper connection with my ancestors, which means I've been reading a lot and watching a ton of videos. When I was trying to figure out who to draw, I remembered I had saved a short video on African American folktales that included a brief description of Mama Joe, who will be the focus of this illustration. In my research, I found that the first verified telling of Mama Joe is in a short story called Suki and the Mermaid, which was written by Robert D. Sansucci. Please correct me if I said his last name wrong, who is from South Carolina. This specific story is recognized as an official African American folktale and gives insight into who Mama Joe is. So naturally, I got the book, read it, and I'm basing this illustration off of the descriptions and pictures from the book. At this point, you may be wondering what exactly I'm doing on screen, especially if you haven't seen photobashing before. Before recording anything, I uploaded almost 45 different photos into my art program, but eventually ended up with closer to 50 photos because I completely forgot to gather references for the end of her tale. The art program I use is called Ibis Paint, and it is available on both Android and iOS devices for free with ads. I personally have the paid version for storage and animation purposes, but if you're just getting into digital art, it's still a great software to use because you can watch one ad to unlock almost everything in the app for 18 hours. I also separated the photos into a series of folders. This is super important when I start a project with this many references because it's really easy to forget exactly where a specific picture may be in the sea of photos. From there, I made all of the folders invisible so I could work with one section at a time, and started with the bottom folder. I do this because I find it a lot easier to start with the background and move my way into the foreground. This also ensures that I don't lose the smaller details throughout the process. The background of this illustration is composed of 2 cave photos and one that's just water. Once I liked how the general shape of everything was looking, I erased sections to blend the photos together and used a clipping mask to recolor certain sections so everything can look like one seamless photo. After the background, it may look like I just go straight into creating the character, which to an extent I do, but there are almost 7 different folders that go into the character creation alone. I didn't like the angle the person was facing in the body reference, so I added an image of someone looking down and resized it to fit the body. This may look a little weird because the 2 character references I use don't blend together very well, but I use my photobash collages as a main reference once I start the actual sketching and rendering process. So it's not entirely necessary for everything to blend perfectly. For the characters I draw, the most important part is having the pose I want to look right rather than the small details. You may notice this when I put together the tail as well because I use 3 different images of fish scales to build the shape and to figure out how the tail connects to her body. Once I had the body and face references put into the place I wanted them, I then began to work on the hair, which you may notice is made out of seaweed. Sorry, my cat is trying to... This is Doja. She's over here trying to, climb into frame, so there we go. She got to say hi. Where was I? Yeah, the hair is made out of seaweed. This is completely intentional because in the story of Suki and the Mermaid, Mama Joe is described as a beautiful brown-skinned black-eyed mermaid with hair as green as seaweed down to the mermaid's waist. She wore gold combs in her hair and has green scales on her tail. This is a paraphrase quote from the story. The story does not, however, describe any type of clothing besides the decoration in her hair. The pictures in the book do show some kind of regal-looking jewelry or collar hanging around her neck and shoulders, but in my interpretation, I did not include this and opted instead to have her long hair cover parts of her upper body. This decision is more due to the rules and regulations against nudity on public platforms, and while my reference images do include clothing, the final image will likely still just have her hair covering her. But I thought it would be an important thing to note, as even in my research outside of this book, I never saw a description of clothing outside of jewelry. There are many smaller details that will be included in the final image, as in the story, Mama Jo interacts with Suki and gives her gifts of shells, red and white coral, and pieces of green and blue sea glass. This is also an almost direct quote from the book. She also gives Suki a gold coin at the end of most of their interactions, and these gold coins become a central theme throughout the story. While I didn't go super in depth into the actual folklore of Mama Jo and focus more on her general description in this video, I have tons of things written down about her that will be included in the next video. Until then, I seriously suggest reading Suki and the Mermaid. The art style in the book is beautiful and reminds me of the pictures drawn in the folktales that I read as a child, which have been a major source of inspiration throughout my life and have influenced the direction I've taken with my personal interests and beliefs, as well as my artwork. I hope y'all have a great day. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my recreations of African and African American folklore, mythology, and spirituality. And don't forget to come back next week to learn more about Mama Jo and to see the final illustration come to life.